Let's get a round of applause for Geno Smith this year. Geno Smith has the most passing yards, most completions, highest completion rating of any Seahawks quarterback in history, surpassing Russell Wilson, Mr. Danger Russ.
Yeah.
Begs the question, we talked about it last week, is Pete Carroll the quarterback whisperer? Absolutely. Geno Smith went from completing 58% of his throws to 70.
70.
Threw
Crazy.
for 4,000 yards. Best season before that was 3,500. So, round of applause for them. Round of applause to Kenneth Walker. An amazing draft. Good for the Seahawks. The Seahawks absolutely deserve a spot in the playoffs. Good for them. And for the Rams, they conclude the worst Super Bowl hangover I've ever seen. Super Bowl blackout at this point. Oh my! I understand there was injuries. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, a bunch of players got hurt. 5-12, and the fate of the teams were mentioned later. Their fate was determined by Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 draft, and it ultimately came down to overtime. And he threw the worst ball to Van Jefferson. Gets intercepted, sets up the field goal.
Yeah, this was awful because we were both rooting for Detroit, but if it wasn't Detroit, at least Seattle, because what's the point? We know Aaron Rodgers is just going to choke in the playoffs and get stomped out by the 49ers. So it's like, I want to at least see two teams who I can believe can be more competitive. The Lions, it's like, hey, all bets are off with the Lions. You never know. Any given Sunday, right? With Aaron Rodgers, it's like, no, it's not any given Sunday. But like a division rival with the Seattle Seahawks struggled in this game. Geno Smith has had some tough moments, but when push came to shove, he had that incredible run where Geno Smith looked fast. And then in this game, he had one of the best balls I've ever seen where he threw it to Tyler Lockett in the end zone. Perfect throw. And then this game reminded me a lot, Geno Smith did, of young Ben Roethlisberger, just with the way he was making the throws, his accuracy, his arm, and then he's willing to take chances just like Roethlisberger. And then it's later in his career, but he's come into his own, broken the franchise record for the Seattle Seahawks. And then, this game, I was like, you're like, I don't know. I think the Rams can win. I was like, why? You're like, Baker Mayfield's played okay. And I was like, uh-huh. And then in this game, I found myself, rooting for Baker Mayfield. And then as soon as I found myself rooting for Baker Mayfield in this game, I was like, oh, right. I remember why Baker Mayfield was going to lose this game for the Rams. And I remember why I picked the Seahawks to win this game and unfortunately eliminate the Lions. But I picked them to ultimately go to the playoffs because I thought the Lions would beat the Packers. Win or lose for the Seahawks. And I'm like, I remember Baker was playing, and then Baker proved like, oh, he doesn't even have arm strength. It's like, you can't run. You have no self-awareness. You're horrible with the media. And then your whole stick is just being controversial, bro. And then you get to Carolina, have the worst QBR in NFL history. And then you just throw this ball up to grab it in overtime when you can spoil your division rivalry's trip to the playoffs, and it doesn't even matter because the Lions have your pick anyways. So I was like, you might as well screw the Lions. Instead, nope, you give them a higher draft pick, someone in your conference who's going to be competing with you year in and year out. And then the Seahawks get to go to the playoffs, and you let them walk there when you had a chance in overtime. It's like, as soon as Baker had to play well in this game, as soon as this wasn't all the chips are off the table and we're playing with house money, it was like, oh, I remember. Pressure on. Baker Mayfield, not a good idea. Just not a good idea. And I know you picked the game last week, so I'm not going to give you much flack just because you want to see the Lions in the playoffs. But you did say, well, I don't know, Baker Mayfield.
Okay, well, to be fair, I didn't make that decision because I believed in that. Yeah. I made that decision. I'm like, you know what? We need this to happen, so let's talk it into existence.
Right.
Baker Mayfield needs to carry this team. Well,